Welcome back to the show. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, the EU has failed to agree on a coronavirus recovery deal that will help member states to revive the economies. Thomas Sparrow is a correspondent with our partners DW. He joins us with details and a better understanding of the situation. He's joining us all the way from Germany. Hello, Thomas.
Hello, Gifty. Nice to be with you and all your viewers again. It is really a pleasure to share all the different news coming out from Europe. And as you say, in particular today, the big news is this impossibility of EU leaders to find common ground when it comes to protecting the different EU countries from the potential impact, financial impact and economic impact of the coronavirus crisis.
So let's take a look at really what sort of engagements have gone on. In view of coronavirus, I don't think they've been able to meet together as a group. So what has been the mode of communication, and how is it that it's just not working?
The big sort of word now, the big term now is European solidarity. And there are instances where you see European solidarity, for example, at a bilateral level. German hospitals taking in French or Italian patients. That's one clear example. Or when some of the tourists that have been brought back from different parts of the world, then one country may take tourists from another country. Those are sort of clear bilateral instances where there's European solidarity. But European leaders have had trouble trying to have a common strategy when it comes to the medium and the long term, as I said, to try and reduce the potential impact of the coronavirus in terms of the economy of those countries. They haven't obviously been able to meet in person, so they've been carrying out different meetings virtually, each minister or each leader from his or her respective country. In fact, there was a meeting only yesterday which apparently lasted 16 hours between the different finance ministers, and they weren't able to come to an agreement because different countries view different measures when it comes to the future of the EU in regards to the corona crisis. And if I can just explain them briefly, I will. There's something called the European Stability Mechanism, ESM, something that's favored by Germany, for example, by the Netherlands. That's the Eurozone bailout fund. So it's been there for quite some time, and that's what Germany believes should be used now to try and help countries that will be particularly hit by the coronavirus crisis. So for example, Italy or Spain. But those countries do not necessarily view that positively. They think there are too many strings attached to this mechanism, and they've been favoring something different called the corona bonds, which basically means that European countries as a group would issue bonds, would issue debt together. And that is something that in particular northern countries like the Netherlands or Germany view negatively, because they think that that could go out of their hands very quickly. So as you can see, there are very different views in Europe regarding what direction the continent should take, and we're talking about a very important direction. In fact, the German Chancellor saying that probably this is the biggest challenge that the European Union has faced.
But it doesn't mean that without this agreement, this unanimous agreement, that individual countries can go ahead with their own packages. Because, I mean, here in Africa, I have not seen or heard any ECOWAS or African Union response, so to speak. But individual countries have had their own plans. For example, here in Ghana right now, I just spoken to our parliamentary correspondent, because our finance minister has been to parliament and presented a request for some money that's meant to cushion people individually. As the EU, as an entity, has not been able to agree, it doesn't stop individual countries from doing what they deem fit.
You're absolutely right there, Gifty, and in fact this is something that you often see in times of crisis, and it's absolutely natural for countries to first try and find answers for their own citizens. That's something that we've seen absolutely clear in this current crisis, and you see Germany or you see other European countries trying to pass different measures to help their own citizens first and foremost, and only then as a second step obviously try and meet with European leaders to try and find a common strategy at a wider level, at a European level. Germany, and we spoke about that I think a couple of weeks ago, also passed a very big aid package to try and help the companies that will be most affected by the coronavirus. It's a package that also includes help for smaller businesses, for people who are independent, who have, for example, a very small businesses or who work as freelancers. It's a very, very big and ambitious package to try and prevent any big damage to Germany's economy. You know, because we've also spoken about this in this program a lot, Germany's economy is absolutely vital to Germany's interests around the world, and as such, when Germany looks at this coronavirus crisis, it obviously looks at it from a public health perspective. First and foremost, it's about saving lives, it's about making sure people are healthy, but at the same time obviously about reducing any potential political and economic impact.
Interesting. Do you have any idea what the economic outlook is for the other key countries within the EU that you can share with us?
The economic outlook, Gifty, is not good at all, and that's something that most countries already know, and that's why when you have a situation where most businesses have to close, where most businesses are affected by a big crisis, and where those businesses are affected not only in one country but around the world, the economic outlook for respective countries and for the European Union as a whole is something that does not look positive, and that's why the urgency is now to try and find common agreements and common solutions at a European level as well. Because yes, it is a problem that affects obviously individual countries. Yes, it is a public health situation, and we've spoken about that as well with all the different numbers of infected people in different European countries. But it is also about finding policies for when things get slowly back to normal, because the economic impact, the financial impact, will only probably be felt in a particular way then. And that's why, for example, another part of the debate here in Europe is when to ease those restrictions. Many of Germany's neighbors, like Denmark in the north or Austria in the south, the Czech Republic as well, have already issued concrete plans of when they plan to ease some of those restrictions and get step by step back to normal. In the German case, the Chancellor has said that she thinks it would be irresponsible of her part to give a concrete date, because she doesn't want to give a concrete date, then have to backtrack if the infection numbers are still up. So that's why the German Chancellor has said that restrictions will still continue to be in place over Easter and at least until the 19th of April.
And that's important because nobody really understands or seems to understand the trend that this particular virus is taking. It's still a thing that all of the world seem to be learning about and following the pace. Thomas, we'll wrap it up there, but just to find out, is there any latest on Chancellor Angela Merkel? Is there any latest on the restrictions on movement?
Angela Merkel is back to normal. You know that she was in a self-isolation, but she tested negative 3 times. So last week she announced she would be working from the Chancellery once again, and in fact she gave a press conference earlier this week to detail some of those measures, and it was precisely as part of those measures that she said that Germany is still not prepared to ease those restrictions, that obviously the German government is considering different options, but at the same time the restrictions that have been put in place will still be in place for a couple of weeks more, until the 19th of April, and it's only then that the government and authorities will try and look at what the statistics are saying. If the statistics are looking good, then restrictions will be eased. If not, then Germany will still be affected by those restrictions. But again, authorities have been saying that the most important thing is for people to stay healthy, to try and take precautions. It is not time for them to stop, and that is something that will be particularly important now in the next few days that we have the Easter holiday coming up.
Thomas, thank you. Thomas Sparrow there, he's political correspondent with our partners DW, who joining us from home in Germany, from where he's working, and of course he's giving us an idea of what's happening right now. Is that among the EU countries, they're trying to find a common goal, a common plan of recovery, especially for the economies, but there hasn't been an understanding on exactly where the funding should come from. That's what Thomas was explaining to us.